We love history over here, and Krystal actually suggested this, so I decided to do a little bit of a dig and give everyone the facts. So this is some fascinating stuff released from the Vatican archives. Let's go ahead and put this up there on the screen. A new letter shows that Pope Pius XII probably knew about the Holocaust much earlier than the Vatican has ever admitted to. So this letter, it was sent actually in 1942, and it warns about Nazi attempts explicitly to exterminate Jews in the Holocaust. The letter, which was reproduced, shows that years before, the Vatican has previously maintained that they knew about the mass extermination campaign against Jews in the Holocaust, that a priest, a German Catholic priest, had given a heads up to the Vatican that, quote, 6,000 Poles and Jews a day were being killed, quote, in SS furnaces at the Belzec camp near Rava Ruska, which was then part of German-occupied Poland, now in Western Ukraine. Apparently, they also referenced Auschwitz and Dachau, some of the most infamous and worst death camps in the entire Holocaust. Now, the reason why this is very significant is because there's been always a lot of debate about the Vatican and how they handled World War II and specifically Nazi Germany. And so what this brings up is the fact that the Pope at that time actually never spoke out against Hitler while he was in power. Now, the key part of that, though, is that while he didn't, yes, technically do that, the Vatican has always argued that they used diplomacy to try and prevent a Nazi backlash, that really what they did is they worked like behind the scenes. There's always been a lot of controversy around this because there's questions about like the Pope at that time's motives themselves. The Allied powers actually begged the Vatican to get involved. I don't know. I mean, after reading this, it does seem pretty clear, like you knew exactly what was going on in December of 1942. At the same time, I mean, like I'm like somewhat sympathetic, I guess, because it was a crazy situation. The Nazis had long been like anti-Catholic, but politically there was some interesting stuff going on between the two parties when the Nazis rose to power. But then, of course, they were also going after, in some cases, priests and others who were working in the resistance movements, like in France. So I don't know, maybe in their justification, I'm assuming, is they didn't want to invite like explicit backlash against the church. Like that's what they're saying.
That's their spin.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. To me, it seems pretty clear cut. Like you knew they were death camps and you didn't say anything about it. So, and it's also interesting. This, as you said, it was found in the Vatican archives in letters, correspondence that they said was like haphazardly stored. And the letter seems to not just be a one-off. It seems to be a series of correspondence between this individual and the Pope. So the idea being that, you know, there were letters before this, even before this letter now that we've found, that they have not yet located. Either they've been, you know, misplaced forever, or they're somewhere else in the Vatican archives that haven't been turned up yet.
Right.
But the idea being that, like, this wasn't even your first signal. You knew what was going on even before this. You were in this ongoing correspondence with this individual. So to me, it seems pretty hard to justify.
Yeah, especially because the Allied powers were literally begging them to do it. There was actually an interesting new book that just came out last year, a guy named David Kurtzer. It was called The Pope at War. It really puts the Pope on blast. And he's like,
really?
Look, yeah. I mean, he didn't have this document, but he knew and inferred enough. What effectively he concluded is, quote, he thought he could negotiate with Nazi dictator Adolf Hitler and temper Nazi hatred with diplomacy, while the Pope acted carefully, quote, amid initial concerns that Axis powers may eventually control Europe. Pius never changed his approach, even as evidence and pleas for the Vatican to take a stand mounted. So, quote, as a moral leader, he must be judged a failure. Also, because he was in power, I mean, you know, it's a crazy situation. He came to power, I think it was like March 1939, and he died in almost 1960, like 1958. So he was the Pope for almost 20 years. And so even afterwards, apparently, they did quite a bit to just cover up some of the things that were going on. And even his predecessor, they never really knew what to do with Hitler and with all the rise of power until they explicitly turned against the church, because they hated communists just as much as some of the German conservatives. Anyway, there's a lot we could go into here, but the letter itself, fascinating stuff, and I guess just proves really the point of David Kurtzer's entire book, which is like, yeah, this is a huge failure on their side. side. And a lot of the justifications and stuff that they came up with really just don't stand the test of time.
Yeah, they don't hold water.
All right, we'll see you guys later.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.